And so it all comes down to this, an election like no other, an election so close, an election with candidates both making history in their own way.
Harris, the first black woman to run, Trump, the first convicted felon. Which one will win the most powerful office in the land?
It's tight, it is fraught, it's being called the most important election in the modern history of the United States. Quite simply, what happens in the next few hours will have huge implications for America and indeed the world. We'll bring you every twist and every turn on what promises to be a dramatic night. I mean, it really does promise to be a dramatic night, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, this has felt like an election like no other.
Well, sometimes you rock up somewhere and you just think history could be made, and this feels a bit like that, doesn't it? Yeah.
Very much so, Mark. Well,
certainly, so many twists, so many turns, the future direction of this country on the line, of course, but the world beyond as well. Democracy in America on the line. Both sides are claiming that. So much at stake, so much to play for. An election so extraordinary, so consequential, so tight, so hold tight.
So,
thank you.
First of all, I hope you're in for a long night, because it's sure we are. It is going to be one. I mean, the closest of close races, and I guess anyone who says they know what's going to happen is either guessing or hoping or both.
That's what makes this so exciting. No one has an idea. There is just no daylight between these two candidates in some of the most consequential states. And so we're all watching and waiting to see who America chooses, because the choice comes down to American people.
Yeah, it's not just that we have an incredibly close race. We've never had polls at this stage of the race, literally the day of the race, with the two candidates tied, not only tied in the national vote, which of course doesn't matter as we know in this country, but tied, pretty well tied in every single one of the major swing states, all within the margin of error. So not only, there is all kinds of ranges of possibilities on offer tonight. We could see a tie. We could be here for days and days and days, as we were in 2020 when Donald Trump refused to accept the result, or even that took a few days to get the final states in. And of course, the presidential elections. We could actually, we could be surprised, and this could be over one way or the other within a few hours.
So I'm going to lean on the idea that maybe tonight we won't, in fact, know.
Don't say that.
I have to say, but you know,
one thing I would say is that, you know, I'm excited, I'm anxious. That's nothing compared to the anxiety of the American people, I think, at this moment. This election does feel like no other before it. The division across the country is so stark. It is a country so siloed as well. And I think so many different groups of people just don't talk to each other. And there is huge anxiety. And all say the same thing. We're so anxious, whatever side they're on. We're so anxious about how this is going to turn out, because at the end of the day, or at the end of this 12 hours, if we get a result during our show, there are going to be an awful lot of people very excited and an awful lot of people very disappointed.
And as you say...
And the truth is, if it's the case that Kamala Harris can win North Carolina, a state that Donald Trump won back in 2020 and indeed in 2016, and she can win Georgia, which Joe Biden won in 2020, first Democrat to win Georgia since Bill Clinton did all the way back in 1992, then she makes her path to the White House so much easier. Look, she's already on 258. That is before we get to the traditional blue wall battleground states of the Rust Belt. And then all she would need to do is win Pennsylvania. Hey, presto, she's on 277. She's won the presidency. We can all go home. That'll be it for us. But if it is the case that Donald Trump can hold on to North Carolina and he can win back Georgia, then things look a bit different, don't they? He's already back on 251, and if he wins Pennsylvania, then that's game over as well. 270. If
Pennsylvania, absolutely key.
It is, Mark. I think Pennsylvania, Keystone, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, if Kamala Harris can win that she's well on her way to the presidency, because there are 96 electoral college votes altogether within the 7 swing states. Pennsylvania is the most valuable of them because it's worth 19. And it is hard to see, to be honest, for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, a path to the presidency without it. It is
a lot of talk, Donald Trump, about massive cheating in Philadelphia. Law enforcement coming, he posts. Now, this is an individual who opponents say will try to style this election as corrupted should he lose it, and a man who has been laying the ground for a legal challenge. So I suppose the question is that statement feeding into that master plan? When he comes here, as he's expected to in the middle of the night, will he declare victory despite what's happening at the vote count centres? That's what he has done before in the past. So will we see a Donald Trump who is trying to shape this result his way, no matter what the figures are telling us over the course of the night?
I'm hearing mixed things from the Harris camp. They're telling me they're certainly feeling very anxious right now.
Yeah, anxious, but I'm also hearing cautiously optimistic. They think that Kamala Harris could well have outperformed the polling, may in fact be ahead of Donald Trump, but take that with a pinch of salt. As for Kamala Harris, after the madness of the 3 months that has gone before, the most truncated presidential campaign in history, she's having a quieter day today. She made a few appearances on radio stations, making last-minute appeals to voters. A team are saying that they're cautiously optimistic, but I think they're aware, this country is aware, that there could well be a tense and long night and few days ahead.
2 words on everyone's lips here in Georgia: election integrity. We have already seen 5 non-credible bomb threats in Bolton County, where I am today alone. The FBI say they appear to emanate from Russia. The Secretary of State in Georgia says they will not be intimidated, but this is a hotly contested and very contentious race.
So back in 2020, it took till Saturday before this state returned a result, declaring it for Joe Biden by that very narrow margin. And in those days, when Donald Trump saw the election slipping away from him, he used that vacuum to fill it with suspicion, scurrilous rumours of election fraud and frivolous lawsuits. And he seems to be beginning to do so again now already, even while the counting is underway. So it is
At Howard University.
You've got some family members who are there at the moment.
Yes,
just tell us what they're telling you about the mood.
Well, it's like a dance party. They were dancing not only in the queue, but now that they are in the quad, they are anticipating the results to come in. A lot of the feedback that I'm getting, people are very excited, but some of them are quite anxious, as you can imagine, because this moment is so significant to them.
And just look at that on the right there. The state of democracy above the economy is the most important issue. 35.
Well, Donald has spent so much time trying to dismantle the key elements of our democracy. So I understand why it's top of mind
we don't know
for a lot of the other voters.
Yeah,
but now, even
was,
tonight,
yeah.
he's questioning the results of this election before the results even come out. That's a part of questioning free and fair elections.
Right, but
is this reflective of the fact that many people are calling this the fear election, that there is real, it's the ultimate fear election?
But the thing more than Donald Trump, whose whole campaign pitch has been, be afraid of the immigrants, be afraid of what happens if Kamala wins. She's going to bring these type of people into this country. He has stoked fear more than any side of this campaign.
So many people across this country will say, I don't like the guy. I don't like what he says. I don't like the way he acts, but I like his policies. So again, with that poll there, they may be answering, actually, I don't really like him, but his policies are good, and I really can't stand Kamala Harris because she's too far left, and I think...
With Hilary Clinton, you saw in the exit pollings that a lot of those folks who voted for Donald Trump did not want to, nor were they prepared to vote for a woman to lead this country.
Well,
tonight we'll test that.
We'll have to...
People just don't like her because she's a woman, isn't it? I mean, if she's got a more... If she's regarded more
I worked
favourably
for
than
the
Donald
Clintons.
Trump.
Don't forget that I worked for Bill Clinton and I worked in that White House. I know Hillary Clinton. She had a lot of things that she brought to the table that Kamala Harris just doesn't.
But,
and
I mean,
it's
her campaign was not a great campaign.
No,
I mean, there's a lot
wasn't.
going on, but...
You voted already? Give me a second. You did, thank you. I'm looking at you and you're looking at me? Oh, because there's a live camera somewhere. Which camera is, this is, okay, I'm waving at you. This is waving at you. Is this Teresa?
I'm surprised that they did not utilize Nikki Haley, I'm speaking of the Trump campaign, a bit more because she does have a big following. We saw that with the turnout for her, but they didn't. in any
think
way
that was a
incorporate.
mistake?
I believe it's a big mistake because not only is he running against a strong woman, but he had this ability to utilize her as a surrogate, at least in some of these swing states, and he chose not to.
Why?
But look, go back
It's
4 years, and you know, January the 6th here, you know, that extraordinary day for American democracy when the guardrails appear to be shaking quite considerably. As Donald Trump insisted that he had won the last election against all evidence. And from there, it has been, well, a roller coaster for sure. But after January the 6th, he was a man in exile. He went back.
It again brought an element of surprise. Donald Trump, it felt like he was lagging behind in the polls. Suddenly, he's re-emerged, and it's neck and neck on the night of the election. He's here in Washington with Team Harris. Martha, just give a sense of what the mood is like there. I'm hearing that they're anxious, they're nervous, but they're also quite excited, and this is a huge day for both camps.
Yeah, Team Harris nervously looking at that exit poll data for any clues as to how this election is going to augur for her. Some of those students were saying they'd not been convinced. They'd not heard enough from her. She'd not made her case for being president forcefully enough to them. And they said they weren't sure which way they were going to vote or if they were going to vote at all.
We've got quite a gathering of former Trump employees, but good evening and thanks for being with us. I just wonder, first of all, did you ever think Trump would get this close to a second term?
I didn't. He shouldn't have, and I think it's a responsibility of the Republican Party and a lot of people in it who brought him back from the political dead. And if he's elected, it's another price we're going to pay for the damage he does to us in a second term. I predict instead of waiting until 2 or 3 in the morning, he'll come on at 9 or 10 East Coast time tonight and say the election's being stolen from us, just to lay the groundwork. He made a mistake by waiting too long in 2020. Just let's all get this straight. There are winners and losers in the world. Donald Trump is a winner, therefore he can't lose. Therefore, if he is losing, it was stolen. That's how it works. It's not just me. He does it to anybody who crosses him. And it's one of the reasons he's really not fit to be president. He doesn't understand issues, so he turns things into personal attacks. And in the kind of politics we have in the United States today, that kind of divisiveness is, I think, very harmful. Well, he believes that China cost him the election in 2020. Of course, he didn't lose the election, but if he had lost the election, it would have been because of the COVID virus coming out of China. And he thinks they're responsible for it, and that's one reason he's very tough.
We've got the Rust Belt states, all the Great Lakes states. These are these up here, the 3 here. We've got Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These are real kind of solid rocks in the Democratic coalition. They have been held in every single presidential election by a Democrat, whether they won or whether they lost, since 1992, apart from in 2016, when Donald Trump took all 3, which is how he got to 306 electoral votes in that election himself. These are...
One of the candidates in this election is, before the counting's even over, saying that there's massive cheating here, with absolutely no foundation or substantiation for that claim.
What's not usual is that, you know, a party leader talks about a candidate, talks about massive cheating, at this stage in the evening.
Yeah, I mean...
Right, we have our first result. And there it is, no great surprise, and a large margin of victory, but Donald Trump is projected winner of Kentucky. 8 electoral votes go to Donald Trump.
It is a Republican state, as you say, so no surprises there, Donald. As we've been saying, I mean, very, very early days. The polls have closed in about 6 states in the last few minutes, and already we can see that the column of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is starting to pick up some of those states. And we're being told that Indiana has been called for Donald Trump as well, so we can add that to Donald Trump's column as well.
Yeah, 11 electoral votes for Indiana, strong Republican state. only...
Actually, in county after county, Donald Trump is underperforming his performance in 2020. So we've got 66% of the vote in Huntington County, just outside Fort Wayne. You can see there, Donald Trump got 73.7% of the vote in 2020, 72% now. Let's go look around more places around Fort Wayne. Again, same thing in Whitley County, 73% versus 71. Fort Wayne itself, in Allen County, 45% of the vote in, 54 versus 51. We've also got Hamilton County, which is down here, which is a wealthy suburb, effectively, of Indianapolis, which is a very Democratic area. It's definitely trending Democratic, but we can see that Kamala Harris, this is a county that Donald Trump won back in 2020, 52 versus 45 with Biden. Harris is winning with nearly 50% of the vote versus 48.6 to Trump. Obviously, got to be caveated because there's still only 58% of the vote in, and Indiana is not going to be contested, but it's already been called. But it could indicate that perhaps if Donald Trump is underperforming with some of his more traditional voters, white voters, more rural voters and so on, that could bode well for the vice president. But of course, it's very, very early days indeed.
We are getting some NBC News exit polls from Georgia, and what they're finding there is that they're saying that there is no sign of a major shift among black voters to Donald Trump in Georgia there. So that is preliminary exit poll data that's coming in, but they are finding that there are no signs of a major shift among black voters for Donald Trump.
Which is great news for the vice president, Yalda, because if we could, at the end of the night, be talking not just about a Kamala Harris victory, but a Kamala Harris blowout.
And went to a basketball court full of young black guys. And I was struck, perhaps because I'd made assumptions I shouldn't be making, that they would not be wanting to vote for Donald Trump. All of them. I'm with the Trump man, I'm with Trump, I'm with Trump. They were absolutely with Trump. The question, and we will find out tonight, is whether or not they bothered to go and vote.
Well, I want to just ask.
There has been some suggestion that Trump would do significantly better than that, and these early exit polls are interesting, that he's not doing as well. He does seem to be doing well among Hispanics. Now, you know, some polling data I've seen show him getting as much as 40% of the Hispanic vote. Yeah. That'll be the highest share that any Republican candidates had of the Hispanic vote since George W. Bush in 2004. So it's interesting. The others, he looks like he's doing significantly better in county after county in Florida, for example, which he's probably going to win. And this could be a really interesting thing because the Electoral College could be much more favourable for the Democrats than it's been in previous elections.
They seem pretty optimistic that she has a chance in North Carolina. If she wins that, this is a don't go to bed moment. If she wins, if she wins North Carolina, then this gets very, very interesting for the Democrats.
Too early to call.
And they believe that they've been able to make some inroads with the Puerto Rican and Latino population in the past week since that rally, that Madison Square Garden rally for Donald Trump, in which a comedian appeared on stage and made that disparaging joke about Puerto Rico being a floating island of garbage.
A lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. Again, normally I don't follow the national anthem, everybody.
They also had Fat Joe, who is a rapper from the Bronx, but of Puerto Rican descent. And he almost shamed Puerto Ricans into casting their ballot for Kamala Harris. He said, if you have any pride in where you're from, then you should vote for her. So the fact that they say they're seeing high Puerto Rican turnout in Philadelphia could well be significant. They are certainly saying that they're seeing positive signs. Obviously, it's very early, and they're bound to portray this sense of enthusiasm. But obviously, a lot of optimism here at Howard University. You can hear it's getting louder here, performers taking the stage. They hope that they'll be anointing one of their former students as the first female president of the United States.
Folks are optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but we believe we have run, through the tape. There have been a record number of volunteers. There have been a record number of door knockings. There have been a record number of phone calls being made to voters. We are seeing a lot of activity across all of the battleground states. And so we are optimistic that we will be successful in both the congressional race and also the race for the presidency. Well, first, we know all that Donald Trump stands for and also against. All you have to do is read Project 2025. I think it's...
Just want to pick up, we're just getting an exit poll from North Carolina. Jerry, you were talking about this a bit earlier, and it does look as if Donald Trump is doing significantly better than 4 years ago with African-American voters and particularly Latino voters.
Yeah, that's that's one of the big trends that's been happening, and it's one of the things we're looking for. We're looking for tonight.
Yeah.
And some polls have been suggesting that Trump is doing really quite well among black men. They kind of like his image that he presents.
8 p.m. here in Washington, and we are ready to make a major state projection. And it is that Sky News is projecting that Donald Trump has won Florida. The state used to be a swing state, not so much since the rise of President Trump. But now the Republicans are in the ascendancy, and Trump has won Florida again.
Yeah, no surprises. I mean, very comfortably winning Florida there. Let's go straight
back again, but it is absolutely true to say that Donald Trump is clearly doing well, as he is, according to the exit polls in other places, with Hispanic voters, with African-American voters. But, contrary-wise, Kamala Harris appears to be doing better with white voters. So it will depend in the swing states whether they emulate Florida or indeed they go their own way. And we should...
That decision to remove the constitutional right to an abortion in America was a body blow for so many people. Absolutely profound. And if you look at the size of America, and then you look at the states that have now, as it is, effectively banned abortion, people have to travel an incredibly long way to get an abortion, hundreds of miles. Abortions often are something that poorer communities might have to deal with more, and yet they are then forced to travel extremely long distances to a state and potentially break the law in doing so.
Indeed.
To a state where they can get one.
And it's not just the travel. We've been hearing horrific stories of women losing their lives, procedures that could have been very simple, but practitioners finding themselves in a very difficult position and not actually, performing what
prosecution.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they could end up being prosecuted, and so they're not able to carry out the life-saving treatment that they need to. It's a huge issue.
Yeah.
The rhetoric, talking about the enemy within and so on. His advisors have been uneasy with that throughout the Trump campaign, which went from a position of winning just before Biden quit to where he is now. Not in a losing position necessarily, but certainly not in a guaranteed position of victory.
These crucial states now, Pennsylvania, too early to call,
but don't be confused about what you're seeing there.
This is where things can get
right. This is exactly what happened 4 years ago. It's exactly what Lewis was talking about an hour or so ago.
Yeah.
You could look at that and think, well, that's that done deal, but absolutely not, because of the way they count the votes.
Yeah.
So you get what looks like a blue wave, or whatever it might be, and actually then over the course of days, I'm afraid, in Pennsylvania, it will take time and it will even out, undoubtedly, because it is such a tight state.
But Georgia as well, which is in a similar place. Well, too close to call now, so these words matter. Too early to call. This one too close to call, so it does suggest that Georgia is once again going to be a very close battleground.
Democrats will be looking at what's going on in Atlanta with some optimism, perhaps, as she seems to be doing OK by comparison to how Joe Biden did, but being a little bit worried about what's happening in Virginia, Mark.
F around and find out what we've got planned for you, saying that they'll spend the night or several nights in a jail cell. You can have fun in your jail cell, is what he warned anybody who wants to mess around with the election process here. But I don't think they're going to be entirely confident of getting a result tonight. It could be some days to come. And I think their concern is that obviously gives room for people like Donald Trump to play mischief in the meantime.
And it does look as if there will be some sort of delay in Pennsylvania.
No. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I think that was to be expected. Well,
but there was no money really spent in Florida, let's be real. They didn't put a lot of effort in trying to flip Florida. So, I mean, out of fairness, There was no money spent. There are no major ads, and there's no ground game there. Okay, so this is not surprising.
Florida's just trending red. I mean, you know, Ron DeSantis.
And this is the big prize, the one that we're watching. Treasure trove of electoral college votes, 19 of them there, and we mustn't allow the results that we're looking at now mislead us because still very early days, too early to call.
We're going to have a quick look at Georgia, I think, and 16 electoral votes, but too close to call in Georgia. And
you know, plenty of people believe that Donald Trump is racist. He certainly has dog-whistled to white supremacists over the years, and I put that.
I think what we can say from these results, Mark, Yalda, is that at the very start of the night we were talking about the possibility, could there be a Kamala Harris blowout, particularly in the Sun Belt and so on. I think that is looking unlikely. I think more and more, as we're seeing from this results, that Kamala Harris is going to be dependent, if she's going to pull off a win, on what is going on in the Rust Belt, those traditional Democratic blue wall states. Let's have a look at what's going on in Pennsylvania. We've got 13% of the vote in there so far. I mean, it's not enough to really say anything either way. And look at the swing. And look at this. You have to say, of the 220 or so counties where we have over 90% of the vote, Trump is up in 203 of them. So compared to Kamala Harris being up in 15 of them. So one way or the other, again, it doesn't say anything definitive. There are hundreds, thousands of counties still to come in throughout the United States. And it could be that most of these will be more rural, sparsely populated counties. So they will trend towards Trump. But it is clear that the president, the former president, I should say, is holding his own.
The fact that it still looks quite neck and neck.
Yeah, is there a pattern emerging? Answer potentially yes. I think, you know, half an hour, three-quarters of an hour ago, I think the Democrats would have been really hoping that what we're seeing play out in Florida, where Donald Trump is doing better than perhaps it had been expected. I mean, he was going to win it, of course. Was that localized, or is that something more widespread? It's looking as though it's more widespread. In simple terms, Kamala Harris needed to do better than Joe Biden was doing 4 years ago in these states because she needed to make up the numbers, and it looks like she's not.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, something that we're going to be watching quite carefully because it's those sorts of trends. I mean, again, it's still early in the night, still a lot of speculation. We saw Georgia there and North Carolina, still too early to call at this stage. But it's fascinating what we're seeing developing.
I think what Lewis said is exactly right, which is that hope that the Democrats had that she might be able to pick off, say, in North Carolina, maybe Georgia. We'll see. We've got the Sun Belt states in the West to go still, Nevada and Arizona. We'll see about that. But the hope that she might be able to pick off one of those, so making her dependency on the northern blue wall less. I think that is steadily fading. Very strong Trump performance in the South. We've now seen Florida, possibly in Georgia, Virginia, as Lewis points out. So, you know, her path to victory, it's early, very, very early days. No one in any way should start predicting, but her path to victory is narrowing a bit, and it's narrowing probably to those three northern states.
Don't forget, though,
and Pennsylvania is looking increasingly important.
Yeah, and don't forget.
I think it's a little premature to say that it's narrowing to the point where they would be extraordinarily concerned. She always knew that she would have a battle in states like, I mean, Texas was never projected that way just because the margins in Florida were so large. I mean, like you stated, DeSantis won by big margins. We will start to see as we move north whether or not their campaign was effective at getting out key voters. I just think that we should just wait a bit and see before having any kind of
no,
dire
absolutely, of course, because we're just exploring the potential scenarios of the path. And, you know, Texas has been projected with its 40 electoral college votes to Donald Trump.
Yeah. And just check
on
the race. Let's just check in on the race because there it is. As it stands, 154 electoral college votes. Donald Trump, 30 to Kamala Harris, and a long way to go.
Yeah, just in the last few minutes, I've been told that Mississippi has gone to Donald Trump. So no real surprises there as we look to our map. And as you can see, the northeast states starting to turn blue. The rural states are turning red. No surprises at this stage from what we are seeing.
Now, at the moment, it looks rather lopsided, doesn't it? Trump on 160 and Harris on 30. Of course, it's largely because the states out west, which won't declare till much later on the night, California, for example, huge numbers of electoral college votes. Harris's totals will start to climb, New York as well, and so on. But you're right, it feels to me as if the polls, actually much derided polls, everyone talking about them herding and so on, may well have been spot on in a sense. We can see here Pennsylvania, 20% of the vote now in. Kamala Harris is way ahead at the moment, but that is partly because you can see there she's way ahead and she's doing well in traditional places that she needs to do well, like Lackawanna County, which is the home of Scranton, Joe Biden's hometown, of course. You can see she's ahead there by 55 to 44. In North Carolina, 43% of the vote in. Donald Trump is ahead. Again, there will be lots of Democratic votes out there, but it's not looking brilliant for the vice president. And Georgia with 70% of the vote in. 53 versus 46.5. I mean, this isn't so dissimilar to what we saw in 2020, in the sense that there are still lots of Democratic areas that Kamala Harris can mine for votes. There's still quite a bit of vote outstanding, but it's going to be difficult. I think what this actually shows us, let's go back to the road to 270, let's go to 2024. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Donald Trump continues to do well in the Sun Belt, and let's say that he takes Georgia, and let's say that he takes North Carolina, and if he's doing well in the Sun Belt states there, let's assume he's been well ahead in Arizona, so perhaps he'll take that. Then you can see he would be very, very close. He would be on 262 electoral college vote, and therefore we get back to the old game that we've been talking about throughout, which is Kamala Harris's road to victory, only road to victory in that circumstance, would come here in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin. There she would have the narrowest of narrow electoral college victory. She'd be at 270 on the nose. It's not to say that she's done in the Sun Belt by any stretch of the imagination, because we've still got lots of votes to come. But I think what we can say is that the prospect of a blowout for her in those places, this map is looking a lot more like the 2020 map, if anything slightly in Donald Trump's direction.
Yeah, and as you say, some of those Sun Belt states, like North Carolina, Georgia, were her insurance policy. She needed that, and say in Nevada, so that she wouldn't have the dependency on Pennsylvania. I'm just being told in the last few minutes that Louisiana has been projected, Donald Trump, to win Louisiana. No surprises there. No. But again, he's adding more of these states to his column.
Yes, I mean, it's no surprise at all. Louisiana, the Pelican state, has been no Democrats carried that since 1996 and Bill Clinton. But yes, he is doing very well in the South of this map. I've got a feeling, Yalda, that we're in for a bit of a long night, because I think that if the polls roughly are correct, which I think they have been, I think we could be waiting on Pennsylvania, for example, for some time, and this could well draw in to the coming days.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to be in for the sort of night that some of the Democrats, in their more sort of fevered imagination running up to it the last few days, Kamala Harris feeling very, very positive, Donald Trump on some of his slightly more eccentric tangents, let's put it that way, over the last couple of days, doesn't seem to have made much of an effect on this race. This race is, as we thought it was going to be, extremely tight.
Okay, you know, a couple of hours before even the polls had closed, Donald Trump put out a, on Truth Social, he put out just a line saying that he could see that there was cheating taking place.
Massive
so really
cheating.
laying the groundwork.
Because I think he's concerned, particularly in the areas that he is the most protesting the highest and the loudest, but he also has a track record when it comes to these things. From what I understand, he's prepared to declare himself victor no matter what at a certain time. So we know that Donald Trump has a playbook. He's going to follow it. He's followed it in the last two and now the third presidential election. But now I see officials are ready for his games and his trickery and his scheming.
It might not stop him, claiming victory.
But I mean, we saw Mark in 2020. I mean, the race almost moved to Pennsylvania in Philadelphia outside that convention center, where everyone was waiting for this recount because of Donald Trump saying, I'm not accepting this result.
They were a crazy few days. They really were.
This can become a serious issue if we're looking at the Democrats having to win this blue wall, having to win the 3 states, and Pennsylvania becomes the key, and Pennsylvania is at the same time at the centre of, these allegations of. One does wonder where it all heads, and whether, do you think the process has changed and that there's more ability for the authorities to challenge this now and to safeguard the system, or are we still, do you think, going to be in a
Well, I mean, remember, the system did actually, all of Donald Trump's challenges in 2020 failed. I mean, he didn't get anywhere with any of them in 2020. So I don't think that, I don't think that was the problem in a sense. I think, the challenges he made were ridiculous. The counting will go on for some time. Again, I think we are looking at a long night here. The polls.
And of course, New York has just turned blue as well. No real surprises
New York
there.
turned blue in 1842.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see again how well Trump has done in some of the those counties to the northeast of New York City.
But isn't it embarrassing to lose your home state?
You're not far off, actually.
I mean, it's embarrassing to lose your home state. I mean, Donald knows that New Yorkers are not supportive of him, but traditionally presidents at least carry their home state. That's not happening here with clearly.
But it's New York.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's New York, Florida, in his column, so I think
Donald Trump. His Madison rally.
The Madison Square Garden rally that he held there, he was making a point, wasn't he?
Yeah, but how many of them were from Manhattan?
Well, yes. Who joins us from Mar-a-Lago. And James, just give us a sense of the mood there right now.
Good. The mood's good, Yalda, might. And being vintage Donald Trump, I suppose, with the rhetoric, that kind of violence-adjacent rhetoric, pointing the finger at opponents. The Madison Square Garden event, which was laced with racism, misogyny, and all the rest of it.
Here in Washington, who is the Kamala Harris watch party, I guess you'd call it. What's the mood there, then?
I think there's people are not panicking at the moment, certainly. There's a sense of optimism. They're showing a feed of one of the American networks on TV at the moment, and every minute that the results go up and it looks like it's going in Harris's direction, there's a huge cheer from her supporters here. I'm just hearing from a number of Kamala Harris aides who say that they've been looking at internal data and exit polls, and on the basis of those, they're confident and optimistic about her winning the presidency still. One aide saying, "I feel good. The exits look good, particularly in North Carolina, where they say they're hitting marks that they were hoping to do so." At some point this evening, we expect her to appear on the stage behind me. People here hoping that she may well be returning to this university as America's first female president, but it feels like, given how close this race is right now, that could be a long way down the line.
Time. You want to say something?
I was just going to say that the Reuters news agency is reporting now that Donald Trump has won North Carolina. I should stress that we're not yet confirming that at Sky or with our partners at NBC, but different news organisations have different methods and have different ways of being comfortable in saying something. But it's certainly interesting that Reuters has come to the conclusion that they believe Donald Trump has won there. And coming off the back of what Martha just said, that the Democrats were quietly confident that they were hitting the right marks in North Carolina, well, it doesn't look that that is necessarily the case. It was always going to be very close. Remember, North Carolina was a state that when Joe Biden was the candidate, the Democrats had written it off. But as we have been discussing, the race was flipped when Kamala Harris took over. Suddenly it became a very competitive state. If we were in a position tonight to be talking about Kamala Harris having won North Carolina, then that would open up many more paths for her to get to that magic number that you can see at the bottom left of the screen there, 270. If she loses North Carolina, it just makes the paths that much more difficult.
Again, it's going to be close again. I think we can say that tonight. It's going to be a story of the night.
That Donald Trump has outspent.
We just want to make a point here. We can't call North Carolina, but we can project that Kamala Harris has won Illinois, which is, let's have a quick look, 19 electoral college votes in Illinois. Sorry.
And we now know that in Florida, a ballot measure that would have enshrined abortion rights into the Florida Constitution has failed. So a majority of people in Florida sticking with the 6-week abortion ban that will now go into effect. Now, this is clearly a blow for abortion rights campaigners up until. But the Florida thing is clearly a blow to pro-abortion campaigners.
Yeah, very much so.
And though this map right now isn't looking very positive for Kamala Harris, and we're thinking more and more about the Rust Belt, just a note of caution on Georgia in particular. I know we were talking about what Reuters was saying about North Carolina, but on Georgia in particular, one note of optimism that the Democrats have right now is that in the Atlanta suburbs, most of the counties we're seeing across the US, we are seeing a swing towards Donald Trump. But in the Atlanta suburbs around here, which we keep talking about, but they are really important because millions and millions of Georgia's population lives there, we are actually seeing a swing to the Democrats in these places. So Kamala Harris is actually doing a bit better in some of these counties than Joe Biden did. And Joe Biden did very well there in 2020. So we talked about the red mirage earlier. Right now, Georgia is 79% of the vote in. It's 52 to 48 as we get. So there's still quite a lot of vote to be mined in Atlanta and in the Atlanta suburbs that might keep Democrats' hopes alive in Georgia. But my word, it's certainly going to be very close. And then just one other thing about Pennsylvania. Let's see, we'll check in how we're on there. We've got a third of the vote in there now in Pennsylvania. You can see Kamala Harris is at 51.6% versus 47.4% for Donald Trump. Joe Biden took this state by, by only 1.2 percentage points back in 2020. There's still a lot of early in-person voting still to be counted here, which will favour Trump. So, look, Pennsylvania is going to be extremely close. We've had a point better, but look at that. With black voters, he's more than doubled his support, according to this exit poll in Wisconsin. There aren't a lot of black voters in Wisconsin. There are some, particularly around Milwaukee. It's generally a white state. But if that were to be borne out, certainly in Wisconsin and other places, then it's entirely possible that we can see that would be extremely advantageous for him indeed. We can see she's actually doing better with white voters in Pennsylvania than Joe Biden did in 2020, so that's good news for her. We can see that with black voters, she's doing a little bit worse, but not much. There's not much in it, unlike what we saw in Wisconsin. But look at the Latino vote there. 69% we saw the Democrats take the Pennsylvania Latino vote in 2020. In 2024, Kamala Harris is getting 57%, according to this exit poll. There was a lot of speculation about whether the Puerto Rico comment at Madison Square Garden, big Puerto Rican presence in Pennsylvania, big Puerto Rican population. If this exit poll is right, that doesn't seem to have damaged him whatsoever, certainly with the wider Latino vote in that state. And if that is true, and again, it has to be treated with a lot of caution, given how narrow Pennsylvania was in 2020, as I said, decided by 1.2 percentage points, that will be very, very worrying for the vice president.
At Wisconsin, because I'm just being told that it is too close to call. So as those votes come in, Wisconsin is now too close to call. Let's show you to Pennsylvania now, where, again, I'm being told too close to call. That big prize, Pennsylvania, as well as Wisconsin, those Rust Belt states that Kamala Harris desperately needs, which will help her path to the White House. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, part of that once so-called blue wall, Louis. We're now being told both Wisconsin and Pennsylvania too close to call. Mark.
Yes, well, it's very interesting, isn't it? But all eyes at the moment, to be honest, are on North Carolina, and that is, well, that will be crucial for Donald Trump, won't it?
It's so interesting to see how Donald Trump is doing with Latinos, with black voters as well. The exit poll that Louis was talking about, put another way, I think is pretty stark. The exit poll suggests that 4 in 10 Latinos in Pennsylvania supported Trump this time. And that's up from 3 in 10 in 2020. So he is making gains. So going.
But I think the Harris camp will be concerned about some of that data around independent voters. We've also seen, haven't we, an emerging narrative tonight around black male voters swinging to Donald Trump in some of the key battleground states. Well, certain battleground states, black men going towards Donald Trump. Why do you think that is?
Well, some of them are young men looking for money and the stimulus package that they got. but that was nothing. He didn't even, it wasn't even his doing. It was the past administration. It was the Congress that did it. So, I don't know, ignorance.
Dustin, do you think that Kamala Harris is going to be able to build on what he achieved tonight?
Yes, absolutely.
What makes you so convinced?
Well, Stacey Abrams has recruited a lot of people. She has registered a lot of voters around here. And we have a lot of black women that are on her side.
I really don't think that it's about if we're ready. I think it's just about that it's about to happen.
You're convinced she can still win tonight?
It's going to happen.
Was the UK ready for Margaret Thatcher? What? Was Israel ready for whoever she was?
What's at stake here for you if Kamala Harris is not elected?
Oh, well, I think I would like to leave the country if she doesn't win.
Well, there you go. Thank you. Is she able to overcome that at this stage? It's just too close to call.
Georgia still seems pretty close. Still, you know, so she still has a chance there, and we'll wait and see what happens in Nevada and Arizona, obviously. But yeah, you know, again, I think her cleanest path to victory was always winning the 3 northern states, because that would just give her a bare majority. And I think it's still that remains the case. Well, I mean, it looks almost certain that the Republicans will take control of the Senate. The question is, how big will the majority be? And that's
let me just give you an update that I've had from a source close to Donald Trump within the Trump campaign. It appears that they are happy with the data that they are seeing from across the country so far. Cautiously optimistic is a phrase that was used. Let's see if that cautious optimism turns to genuine optimism over the course of the next few hours. But the data points coming back suggest to the Trump campaign that they're having a good night.
Interesting.
We're expecting Donald Trump to come speak later, maybe around midnight, after he wins. And so, you know, everyone's talking trifecta here in West Palm Beach. We're expecting the White House, the Senate, and Congress. So it's going to be a big night, and certainly red wave, county by county. My county in Miami County just flipped red for the first time in 30 years. So it went from blue to red in this election.
So you're saying, are you, that Donald Trump will be claiming victory in 2 hours' time?
Well, it looks that way. It looks like people are very, very, very excited. If the numbers are all in.
These states, and in New York, we saw it go one way, and in Florida, the opposite.
But if that is the way the Republicans are thinking about you know, declaring victory in 2 hours' time, I mean, look, who knows? Donald Trump may just do that. He may just come out and say it's done, but it clearly isn't done.
No, but he was always going to do that, I think, anyway. But I do think the way the results are trending right now, you know, looking at some of the votes coming in crucial counties in states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, you know, it's getting more and more likely that Trump will be able to declare victory, and it won't just be a sort of premature brag at midnight or whatever. It may well be that we're quite close to him actually winning.
What, because you think he will win one or either of Wisconsin or Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers again, we're not there yet, not even there, and the numbers could turn around. But again, it's still too early to say. But this is the trend in most of these states. If Harris is going to pull this out, it is, you know, it's going to have to be a very, very narrow needle threading exercise in those 3 states. Could still do it, but it's going to be tight. So, despite everything that's happened and all of the controversies and all of the understandable doubts that people have about Donald Trump, he's potentially his vote share is getting larger and larger each time. Even if he doesn't win, he could end up with a bigger share of the popular vote than he's ever had before, with a much broader coalition, certainly in terms of ethnic demography.
I'm just hearing in my ear that Ted Cruz under pressure before.
Well, I took a break. I wanted to step back and touch base with the different folks who are on the ground in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin. The Democrats are feeling very confident about Wisconsin and Michigan. They are very, very concerned about the results that are coming in Pennsylvania. She was up, and now, of course, Donald Trump has taken the lead in Pennsylvania. So they're concerned, but they haven't given up quite yet and are still optimistic that she has a path to the 270.
Well, we have a bit of an update from Iowa now. Let's just have a look on our screen. As you can see, Donald Trump wins Iowa. So it just goes to show that Ann Selzer Des Moines prediction that was made just days, I think 24 hours before the election, she predicted that there was a sudden surge for Kamala Harris. And of course, she's considered the oracle of Iowa. Her polls are highly respected, but you know,
she had Harris a 3-point
win lead.
It was within
way out
margin,
of line with everything that anybody had ever seen. I mean, there was no poll that had given Trump anything less than like a 5 or 6 point lead.
Yeah.
And look, she's obviously been a terrific pollster. She's got things right generally, but this every pollster is one poll away from reputational damage, and obviously in her case, that's what happens.
it would have been a big
shocking
upset, huge, if Trump had not won Iowa, but it's quite the margin given the.
Given what that poll was saying, so that I am off. I'm going to go. I've had enough. But you know what we're looking at the moment are these key battleground states, and we've just said called Iowa for Donald Trump. But we're looking at these 7 battleground states, and you've got a bit of an update for us.
Yeah, Yalda, I mean, look, I think we're really seeing a pattern now, particularly, and I think we can say we've got enough results to say that Donald Trump is doing well with ethnic minority voters. This was one of the big questions, outstanding questions coming in.
Strategy.
Indeed so, and indeed I think that it is very likely that Donald Trump is putting together one of the most racially diverse Republican coalitions that there has ever been. I mean, let's look elsewhere as well in terms of, let's look what's going on in the Rust Belt. Well, let's look at Pennsylvania. At the moment, Donald Trump is leading Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania with 52% of the vote in. Donald Trump is at 50.6%. Kamala Harris is at 48.5%. Let's have a look. As you can see here, Chicago, lots of African Americans living in Cook County, which is the home of Chicago. You can see Kamala Harris is on 67.6% there, but that is way, way down in percentage point terms on where Joe Biden was in 2020, winning Cook County, the home of Chicago, with 74.3% to Kamala Harris, now on 67.6%. So I think we can say that Kamala Harris is certainly struggling to maintain that very diverse coalition that Joe Biden put together in 2020. And Donald Trump looks, despite everything, despite all of the comments that he makes, despite all of the fact that we've seen with Latino voters, we saw with Puerto Rico, Madison Square Gardens and so on, he is nonetheless clearly appealing, and we'll have to wait for the data breakdown to be sure, but he is certainly appealing to younger voters, and in particular ethnic minority younger voters in particular. Yes. What we're seeing again and again and again, even in the Rust Belt, where she's probably doing a little bit better than she's doing in the Sun Belt, you can see she's usually about a percentage point or so down on where she needs to be. And we are seeing in presidential level, Senate level, House level, we're seeing that this is looking to be a Republican year.
Yeah, well, we'll be watching all of that and discussing.
Yeah, which is giving this place, Mark, a bit of a buzz. This is a watch party, as they call them in America. You've got a carnival atmosphere going on here, as you can see, a real party spirit. Watch parties are obviously what happens. While the votes are being carried, Americans across the country are gathering in these kind of parties, waiting to hear what happens, expectantly, nervously, and, you know. How's the mood for you, sir? How are you feeling?
I'm very excited. If we take Pennsylvania, I think we got the whole thing of kit and caboodle.
Were you nervous earlier? Has your mood changed as the evening's gone on?
It was a little bit earlier, but now I feel a lot better and confident about what's going on now.
The mood here?
The mood here is getting pumped.
A victory party, do you think?
It is, but there's been a lot of cheating going on, and it all started the last election when it was stolen. It was definitely stolen the last time. I think when he ran around when he was running against Hillary, they thought that Hillary was going to win, so cheating didn't start then. But the last time around there was, and it was proven. And
as you say, only half of the votes counted here, and it could be days, Mark, before all the votes are counted. They hope it'll be less than that, but certainly it could be a bit of a wait. I think they're preparing for a long night here. but the mood's certainly pretty buoyant, and I think they feel the evening is going in their direction.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Dominic, thanks very much indeed. And so there seems to be some momentum at the moment with the Republicans.
There is momentum, and you can feel people here at this Dems Watch Party in Detroit, in downtown Detroit, keeping their morale high, trying to kind of stay patient before jumping to any conclusions about what these results might mean. But one surprising thing has been this exit poll from Michigan, showing that Trump has won with under 30s by 4 points. Now that's shocking to us because it's too early to say how Michigan is going to vote overall, but there's a lot of hope here still.
I'm feeling fantastic because I'm from Pennsylvania, so I have chills right now.
You have chills right now?
Absolutely.
How about you, Ingrid?
I'm feeling fantastic. I think it looks like we're going to have a Trump win tonight, and I prayed about this for the past year, and it looks like it's going to happen for us. Well, so hopefully, but it's looking good right now.
So as far as the Ohio thing went, they did have a lady on video that was eating pets. It was proven.
We can project a win for Donald Trump in Nebraska, and he picked...
Reuters have been reporting over the past hour or so that they are calling North Carolina for Donald Trump. We're not yet doing that ourselves, nor our colleagues at NBC, but it's not looking particularly good. I was speaking to some Democrats close to that, at the heart of the Harris campaign, deployed to North Carolina on the ground game, knocking on doors. And 4 days ago, they were telling me that they were really quite optimistic about how things were going. Which
look at Pennsylvania, which is of course the jewel. 60% of the vote now in. Donald Trump ahead by 50.8%, and you can see how he's doing it. He's running up the table again in rural areas, but you can just see that in county after county, Kamala Harris, unfortunately for her, is just not doing as well as Joe Biden did in 2020. In Georgia, we can see now we've got 86% of the vote now in Georgia, and Trump is enjoying a margin of 153,000 votes. Kamala Harris has got to try and find 154,000 votes of the remaining 14%. So it's going to be hard for her, I would say, numerically in Georgia, to be able to overcome the 150,000 difference that Donald Trump is currently enjoying, and you can just see it everywhere. There is just a Democratic underperformance in all of the key battleground states. So although, we're not willing or able to project anything at the moment, you have to say that if you were Donald Trump, you would be feeling pretty comfortable and pretty happy right now. And in fact, on the basis of the figures that we've got, it's entirely possible that he has at least as good a win as he had in 2016, and maybe in the popular vote, he might even win it, something he has never achieved, and as we know, would sorely like to.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Lewis, thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's go to our correspondent, Martha Kelner, who has been with the Kamala Harris camp in Washington. Martha, just give us a sense of the mood there now.
Yeah, Yalda, the mood has definitely dampened in the past hour or so. The music's still playing, but there's around 10,000 people here. You wouldn't know it because not many of them are making much noise at all right now. I think there's very little for them to grasp onto in terms of signs of optimism from the early data at the moment. People waving their stars and flags, but really not particularly optimistic at all. And just, I think some of the data that we're seeing around the female vote is particularly concerning for Kamala Harris. She's +7 in Georgia with women, whereas Biden 4 years ago was +9. That is concerning given how aggressively the Harris campaign has been courting the female vote. And so I think abortion may not have been as big a vote winner as they hoped. The mood here certainly reflecting what we're seeing in that early data. There's just a large cheer. People are watching as the results come in from Delaware. No surprises there that it's going blue. But when the results from Iowa were read out, there was a big sigh here because I think earlier in the week there'd been that poll from the Des Moines Register in Iowa which suggested that Kamala Harris might have the edge on Donald Trump. It was a surprise poll. It suggested she was doing particularly well among older and independent women. So when the result came up here that Donald Trump had won Iowa, there was a big sigh and certainly a lot of disappointed faces here at the moment.
Martha, thank you very much indeed. And, well, this is the way it looks at the moment.
Yeah, you can see some of those states, a lot of those states, red now. And
also, if you look at who's leading the race right now, Donald J. Trump has an insurmountable lead with the number of votes outstanding.
That's not what the people wanted.
It just sounds so fascinating because I've watched some of your opinion pieces. I've read them, and you're kind of speaking a little differently than you did in those policies. You were saying yourself that Donald Trump was done, that his presidency was going to be a joke and had been a joke, and that there was no way for him to recover. But your tone has completely different than a lot of most of your opinion pieces about Donald Trump was doom and gloom. Now today, it looks like the outlook is a little better and you're shifting a bit. But a lot of the things that you described as radical, many African Americans particularly wouldn't call radical. Find it necessary because there are African Americans who opened the border. Please tell me the example of what opening the border.
Well,
you sound a little bit like Donald Trump right now.
Donald Trump,
no one's opened the border. You still have to go through the process to legally become a citizen here. But to say that somebody just flung open the gates of America so that
how else did 11
that's
million people
ridiculous,
enter the
nor
country
do we have
illegally?
time to even address that. There's no open border. You still have to go through a process here in this country. And you know what? 23 million entered while Donald Trump promised to build a border wall and make Mexico pay for it. We have to acknowledge that both sides have problems with immigration, and they have failed to address this issue. But it does not lay squarely at only Biden's feet. This is an issue that historically people have struggled with. But I want to...
Your party wanted to defund the police.
First of all, let's clarify. I am not a Democrat.
So Kamala Harris in 2020...
I am an independent. So if you're going to address it, you have to do it accurately.
In 2020, the candidate you supported in this election...
particular network.
Candidate you supported in this election in 2020...
Okay, let's talk about
supported the defund the police movement, actually raised money for people who were
Okay, so what does that have to do with the price of tea in China right now?
You talked about crime. You just talked about crime. You said African Americans, and you were dead right, concerned about crime.
That's where this movement started with George Floyd. If we want to go back to seeing a man choked in the streets, we can talk about that. But that's where the racial justice movement started, and why people are crying, and you're calling it woke. I call it necessary. That's just the way things go.
Well, you can denigrate people who lose elections that they shouldn't have lost.
You should probably remain consistent on the policies, the things that you write about Donald Trump, and then not flip.
I mean, this does give you, though, a sense of the polarization in this country, which we will get to, actually. But
I should shut up. I think she has failed to define herself in any meaningful way. And I think she also failed to separate herself from Biden. She is literally the vice president. She hasn't, it seems, with a lot of voters, managed to separate herself and present something new, present change.
Yeah, and we are good in 105 days.
But we will get to that in a moment because her campaign did start 16 weeks ago. We will get to that in just a second.
We can see some results, and one of them is not that surprising. 54 electoral votes for Kamala Harris, which will make her map look a little bit better. And so there we are, things closing a bit, but largely due to California, those 50.
Go to Wisconsin. Well, what do we find? This is going to be a rather familiar and indeed rather bleak picture at this hour for the Democrats, because we will find that Donald Trump is indeed ahead in the state of Wisconsin by, 30,000 on the nose. That's nice, isn't it? 30. Let's have a look elsewhere as well, not 2020. That's the dream map for the Democrats. Doesn't look like that tonight. Michigan, a little bit better for Kamala Harris in Michigan. She's ahead by 68,000, but there will be more Republican votes to come in this state. 70 Lake State. Let's look at the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We can see here 71% of the vote in now. Donald Trump is ahead by 152,000 votes. Again, votes still to come there. Philadelphia County, you can see 78% of the vote in. And again, she's doing about 4 or 5 percentage points less well than Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is clearly not doing as well with black voters. She's not doing as well with Latino voters. And Donald Trump is continuing to dominate among white voters. We can just see this pattern emerging again and again and again. On all of the key metrics, we see that Kamala Harris is underperforming in the key constituencies that she needed. Just have a quick look elsewhere as well. Georgia, 88% of the vote now in Georgia. It's still too close to call. It is still absolutely possible that Kamala Harris, because she is holding her own in these places. Oh, no, there. Just go back here. It's early in the morning, you know, we've got a bit of a slip of the finger. It has to happen now and again, doesn't it? It was going to happen at some point, so I'm glad it's happened now rather than an absolutely crucial moment. Let's go back to... It's looking harder and harder to see exactly where she can find the vote. Hour by hour, are staring down the barrel of a second Trump presidency.
Louis, thank you so much for bringing us up to date there. Well, let's go straight to Martha Kelner, who joins us. And Martha, you have a bit of an update.
Yeah, a significant update here. The campaign chair for the Kamala Harris campaign, Jen O'Malley Dillon, has just in the last few moments sent out an email to campaign staff, which basically boils down to this. She is urging for patience and for caution as these results are coming through. She says that the Harris campaign still do see a path to victory, but essentially they see it through those blue wall states, through Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin. Just to give you an idea of what this email says, she says, we've been saying for weeks that this race might not be called tonight. Those of you who were around in 2020 know this well. It takes time for all the votes to be counted, and all the votes will be counted. She also signed off that email to staff saying, we're built for this. Let's see the night out and we'll be back tomorrow. So the Harris campaign saying they don't expect a conclusive result this evening, and they're still cautiously optimistic about a victory through those blue wall states.
Right, Martha, thank you very much indeed. Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that the Democrats still seeing that path to victory, so still clinging to that blue wall.
I mean, I guess you have to, don't you? At this point, none of the battleground states have been called, so you're not going to put out a statement and say we're deeply worried.
My girlfriend sent me a picture. It looks like the states with crayons and said, I have a projection. And it's just crayons all over the place. But the reality is that there is still no clarity in the key states that will decide. Although Donald Trump seems to have the momentum, we have to acknowledge that. But I'm glad that Harris is sending a message to her supporters to tell them to keep the faith, to make sure that they know that every vote must be counted before a winner is declared.
You know, there is some concern in the Harris camp, although they have put out a statement saying they're cautiously optimistic. Just give us a sense of how people are talking and feeling where you are.
Hi, Yalda. Yeah, on the cautiously optimistic states, I can tell you, advisors for Donald Trump, they have said that they were cautiously optimistic and they have shifted their position, they say, to optimistic. I think, and we're told that if the results continue on their current trajectory, that could be sooner rather than later. Talk of before midnight, perhaps. That would strike me as quite soon. I mean, that's 40.
Well, we've been looking at our map here, turning red and blue, and no real surprises at this stage. Many of these states we knew would go this way. Obviously, again, no surprises. And then, of course, Kamala Harris needs these states if it is her path to victory is to be made clearer. But of course, we're still waiting for results, and we're being told too close to call in places like...
They are saying that they still believe that there is a path to victory in the blue wall. They are, but they're saying that they're still optimistic about the rest of the state, and you can see that path, and it is possible, but it isn't looking brilliant. Whether it looks, as of we're talking now, that Donald Trump is on course to win those two states, then it really does narrow the path for her substantially.
Yeah.
He's apparently told reporters that Trump has an insurmountable lead in Georgia. He said, if you look at who's leading the race right now, Donald J. Trump has an insurmountable lead in the state. Now, there are clearly thousands of outstanding votes still in that state, but he added that the maths looks like this is done.
Yeah, so, but he is, you know, he says the maths looks like this is done. We're not calling it yet. NBC aren't calling it yet. What I can tell you is that, as well as Reuters calling North Carolina for Donald Trump. The Associated Press is now calling North Carolina for Donald Trump as well. So, as we've been saying, Kamala Harris needs Michigan. She needs a clean sweep of the Lake states in the north, the Rust Belt, if she is to stand any chance here. I mean, they're effectively conceding the Sun Belt. The wording of the lead, the person leading the campaign for Kamala Harris, her language does not look positive at all.
And we leave it there because Sky News is ready to make a major state projection. And there it is. Sky News is projecting that Donald Trump has won the state of North Carolina, a crucial swing state.
NBC is now projecting that Donald Trump will win, get this, 1 in 3 ethnic minority voters in the United States. That is a far better performance than he achieved 4 years ago, or indeed 8 years ago in 2016.
They cannot relate nearly as much to Kamala Harris.
She struggled to tell the American people who she actually is. And I think this is why she did this sort of flurry of interviews at one point as well, to try and, tell the American people a little bit more about herself.
And maybe just too left-wing, even for white Democratic Party voters. As one guy said, who I spoke to last week, who I've met quite a few times, he's a working-class guy, as he called himself, from Johnstown, Pennsylvania. He said, look, I'm an old white man. I've voted Democrat all my life. But Kamala Harris, she's just too left-wing for me.
Massive part of her
At one point,
trail.
the Democrats were knocking on 2,000 doors a minute in Pennsylvania.
The money.
By the way, that's an interesting story about the much vaunted Democratic get out the vote operation. It is, it was thought to be. It's always thought to be an advantage for the Democrats, and this time around, people were talking about it being maybe a 1 percentage point advantage. Well, if it was, it doesn't look like it's been enough in most of these states. First of all, it looks increasingly likely like he will win the popular vote for the first time in three attempts, and he will increase his share of the vote, for the second straight time.
That's something he'll be very, very happy about.
But Pennsylvania. I mean, $1.2 billion was spent by, this is enormous stuff. Most of it by Kamala Harris. Michigan was second, 759. I mean, these are staggering figures, and it didn't always used to be like this.
Massive cheer in the last 5 minutes when Fox News announced that the Senate has gone to the Republicans, majority control of the Senate being won by the Republicans. And I think that's sort of typical of the mood here. Pretty bullish, I think, increasingly confident, but a number of people have said to us they're still nervous. They remember 4 years ago they went to bed thinking Trump had won and then woke up and Joe Biden was the president-elect. And a lot of them said to us tonight they don't dare go to bed because they're worried that could happen again. But I think the way things are going, I think those jitters are being dispelled a bit, and they are expecting, I think, pretty good news about their home state in the next half hour or so. We'll see where that leads in the national race as well.
And pretty much straight away, there it is. Harris has been the projected winner of Hawaii. Solid.
We spoke to you in the last hour or so, Martha, and you said that they were cautiously optimistic. What are they saying and thinking and feeling right now?
Well, I think publicly the Harris campaign are still saying that they're cautiously optimistic. They still think that there's, or at least publicly they're saying that they believe there's a route for Kamala Harris to victory still through the blue wall states of Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin. But I have to tell you, here at Howard University, which is her election night HQ, a couple of hours ago people were singing and dancing. The mood was very buoyant. Well, that has completely, drastically changed now, especially when that result was read out. People are watching on the big screen here as the results come in. When it was revealed that Donald Trump was the projected winner in North Carolina, it fell almost eerily silent here. It was so quiet that But even with 10,000 people in the crowd, I could hear a drone buzzing above. There are a lot of dejected, despondent people here. I think the hope that they might see Kamala Harris appearing on this stage this evening is dwindling too. The Harris campaign still trying to strike a positive note. She's clearly trying to keep spirits high, clearly trying to keep their staff buoyant. But I think there's certainly a recognition here at Howard University that it's an uphill climb for Kamala Harris now. That path to victory is certainly narrowing.
So there is a party atmosphere of sorts, I'd say relatively subdued. I mean, Dolly, they're sounding optimistic, they're talking the talk, but I look around and I see not grim faces, but studied faces, watching the rolling news coverage very closely.
Some really interesting preliminary results coming in from New Jersey, which fit a pattern. 85% of the vote counted. And Kamala Harris has a 4.5% point lead, I should say. But Biden won the state in 2020 by 16 points. So the swing to Donald Trump in New Jersey at the moment is about 6 points, which is the largest of any state so far. So this is, as I say, it fits a pattern, and it's pretty remarkable for Donald Trump.
I think they spent a little too much time on Donald Trump's a fascist message, and not quite enough time on the undermining of his actual economic policies.
You're speaking as if it's done and dusted.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And you know, Pennsylvania's yet to come back.
Pennsylvania's everything.
Michigan's yet to come back. Wisconsin's yet to come back.
I feel
that is your route to victory.
I think people are confident about Michigan and pretty confident about Wisconsin, from what I gather from the teams. I think, you know, Pennsylvania's everything.
But is your information that Pennsylvania is going to be a stretch now?
No. I mean, I don't know. Well, it's already a stretch.
So we could be having a very different conversation in
We could, but
a few hours' time or a few days' time.
Georgia remains too close to call at this stage. So while we've called North Carolina, projected Donald Trump to be the winner there, Georgia is too close to call. Pennsylvania there, again, too close to call. Michigan, again, another key battleground state that Kamala Harris is desperate to have in her column, too close to call.
The mood has definitely changed here. I mean, I've just seen an older black couple leave the watch party looking very, very upset. It's very sullen. I mean, we did speak to people downstairs on the main floor of the party, and the sense was, we feel anxious, we feel nervous, it's not looking good. But they're still hoping that with Michigan being too close to call right now, that they can at least get a win on the state level, on the local level, on the county level here in Detroit. But again, they can see that Trump is climbing. They can see that all the work that they've done hasn't paid off. And now it's just upset. People are just very, very upset.
Hilary, are you seeing any similarities between Kamala Harris's campaign and Hillary Clinton's campaign as we sit here now?
Only the desperate fear that they're both going to have lost. Because he is, again, the person who's saying you are getting screwed. And all of those other people are the ones screwing you. And that,
Jerry, do you think it's done and dusted? I mean, are you...
I mean, you never say it's over until it's over, but I mean...
Ambassador, we're just going to hold you there because Sky News is ready to make a major state projection. A crucial state, Sky News is projecting that Donald Trump has won Georgia, one of the key battlegrounds of this election, worth 16 electoral college votes there. So
virtually complete. I mean,
well, and we're hearing that former President Trump is likely to speak at his watch party in West Palm Beach, Florida, relatively soon. So it'll be fascinating to hear what he has to say when he takes to the podium there.
He's edging closer, as you see there, 246 to 189. The race to 270 is hotting up. And
so maybe that get out to vote effort was not as successful as the Democrats hoped that it would be.
Yep. Cordy, thank you so much. We have a bit of an update here. We understand our sister channel, NBC News, has projected that the Republicans will take the Senate. So crucial. We might actually see that triple flip that we talked about.
And they're not just going to take the Senate. It looks, I mean, as Kay Bailey Hutchison just said, I just looked at the latest numbers coming out of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. All the Republicans are leading. You're going to have, as you say, not just a triple crown, a triple sweep, but the biggest Republican victory since 1988. Wow. That's what we're looking at right now.
Absolutely.
So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. And go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
It's interesting that she's done that. I mean, because look,
that was a mistake.
Trump's at 246. Pennsylvania, I think, is going to be called fairly soon for Trump. That's going to be 265. He's just going to then need one more state,
and he's going to go and declare victory. I said that earlier.
It sounds like he
I
will
said that earlier in the
night.
night that's part of his playbook. She has now basically given him the room and the space to do that by allowing Cedric Richmond to come out. The stage is set for Donald Trump to go through all of the different things that he does in the past.
And that's quite a remarkable thing for the Democrats to do at this time.
It's a mistake.
Well, I mean, this is going to be called with it, well before the
it's not going to be
morning.
called tonight. I think they must. They understand. Look,
if it's called,
the state of Pennsylvania
but the
is
fact
not
that the
going to be
lights
called
are
tonight.
up and people are leaving.
It's a mistake, I think, for her not to come out. But I think that to the extent that she wants to keep people's spirits up, she wants to, stay in the game and until the last dog dies. She probably could have come out and said something. Yeah,
she should have come out and said something.
Is that a wave or what is it?
Donald Trump is ahead in each and every one of them. Pennsylvania ahead by 162,000 votes. You were talking about as well into Wisconsin. We can see 84% of the vote in there, 51% ahead for Donald Trump. Michigan, the Great Lakes state, Donald Trump is again ahead. Still got quite a bit more of the vote still to come here. What we're seeing across the United States on this map is a universal swing across age groups, across ethnicities, across geography towards Donald Trump. Donald Trump, put very, very simply, is doing better everywhere. Kamala Harris is doing better, by comparison to Joe Biden, virtually nowhere. And whether you look at the presidential level, at the Senate, the chances are a little bit better in the House of Representatives, but at the state level as well, Republicans are doing better and putting together their most diverse and impressive electoral coalition that they've had for decades. And that is despite the fact that Donald Trump, during that time, since the last election, has become a convicted felon, has led, his critics say, an insurrection on the Capitol building itself, and all of the outrageous comments that we've seen in between then and now. The American people seem to be saying tonight that they have seen that movie before, the Donald Trump movie, and I'd like to see a sequel.
OK, well, Lewis, we've yet to have the blue wall states declared, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin and Michigan, but things do seem to be going irreversibly in the direction of Donald Trump, which probably makes things a little bit disappointing at the Washington watch party, or what was a watch party. Is it still going on? Martha Kelner's there. Let's find out if it's still going on.
The music's still just about playing in the background, Mark, but this party is well over now. I've just spoken to a few people as they're trickling out of the exits here, and they were understandably given their views. They were saying how dejected they were. One woman said she was heading home for a stiff drink and to consider what the next 4 years might have in store. Another woman, it may well be that she comes here tomorrow to concede this race. That is how quickly it seems to be running away from her. There's certainly a recognition here that path to victory is looking ever so unlikely for Kamala Harris. And it was amazing, really, how quickly the mood changed. A few hours ago, there was this real sense of optimism here. I think people at this party felt like she'd had the better run-in to Election Day. They felt that she'd taken advantage of some of Donald Trump's missteps over the past 2 weeks, while the polls simply haven't borne that out this evening. And so a lot of very dejected, despondent people. There were around 10,000 people here earlier. I'm just looking around. There's maybe a few dozen of them remaining. Everyone else has gone home.
Well, we saw the Harris HQ, I mean, there behind Martha, just emptying out. What do you think, Hilary, the strategy and thinking behind that would have been?
I think that look, I think that the campaign has been run by a group of sort of, in some respects, formulaic insiders who may have lost touch with who their voters are. And, you know, you asked before if I see a connection with Hillary Clinton. I think we see that we saw Joe Biden, too, where his team thought that he was beloved. And it turned out he wasn't so beloved. I think that the professional class of the Democratic Party is really going to need to take a look at themselves about how they're running campaigns and what their messages are, and whether demonization is, you know, of Donald Trump was the successful strategy that they all bought into. And my guess is that Kamala Harris probably felt a little stuck tonight and didn't know what to say. And I don't know that her team knew what to say, so they decided to turn out the lights. And
Quite
that's,
a decision.
you know,
You just
disappointing.
don't turn out the lights when you have, you know, and then you turn the women that I saw in that video away and told them to go home. We'll sort it out in the morning. I think it's a critical era.
I mean, and she essentially inherited all the same people. Jen O'Malley Dillon was the campaign manager for Joe Biden and took those same messages. And you know, Kamala Harris could have changed it up, but
no,
she
she couldn't. That was a part of the deal was that Jen had to stay in place.
No, she could have changed up the messaging. And sometimes, look, with Joe Biden, we had zero chance against Donald Trump, and Kamala Harris gave us a 0+1 chance.
And from a procedure standpoint,
there's music, and
there are
the one thing we've learned overnight is that music means that we're about to do something.
Dancing.
That we're about to witness the closure of. Where is Kamala Harris? There she is. Kamala Harris is still in the race with the remaining battleground states too close to call, but her path to power is narrowing severely.
I mean, she's still in the race, but she doesn't seem to be at Harris HQ.
I think it's fair to say that things are going Donald Trump's way.
Yeah,
and I think Kamala Harris is, you
and
know,
let's just give
a hard lesson to learn.
But Jerry, you think, just to get this clear, you think the Republicans are on the verge of a big victory?
Yeah, I mean, it looks very much like that. It looks, again, it's...
To your point, Jerry, on precisely that, the latest update we've got is that Donald Trump is leading now in all three of the Rust Belt states. In Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin. He's 6 points up in Michigan with 62% of the vote counted. He's 3 points up in Pennsylvania with 92% of the vote
And he'll win
counted.
Arizona and Nevada, too.
Well, and Wisconsin, 4 points up, 86%. Counted. So, and as for the Harris campaign, well, she has said in the last, well, her spokesperson has said in the last half hour that she's gone home. She will address the nation tomorrow.
Well, let's...
His advisors said they were cautiously optimistic at the start of the night. They are now optimistic, and clearly the mood here is that it is in the bag.
We are witnessing quite extraordinary events in the United States, and it is quite possible that just like 2016, we're looking at the blue wall turning red. I mean, is that what we're looking at, Lewis?
Yes, Mark, if you're just waking up, you are on the verge, potentially, of seeing Donald Trump pull off the greatest comeback in political history, because he is on the verge of pulling off not just an election victory, but potentially a realigning election victory in the United States. He is currently leading in every single remaining battleground state, and not just winning them, but winning them at a canter at the moment. So let's look at...
Will probably make much difference, but, Lewis, it just seems that it is all suddenly happening very quickly, and it is all going Donald Trump's way.
It is, and look, I mean, people might be waking up this morning in the UK in particular and thinking, hang on, we said that all of these states were really close. And indeed, it is still the case that even though Donald Trump is doing better than was expected, a bit better than the polls expected, it is the case that many of these states do remain close. But as we were saying there before, very often when there is a wave, there is a wave, and the dam bursts. And I think what we are seeing here is that we have got a country which almost universally, across geography, across age groups, across different coalitions, is trending in the Republicans' direction. This is clearly a rejection of Joe Biden's 4 years in office, for which Kamala Harris is closely associated. And she was never able, perhaps she didn't have time to differentiate herself from the president, the current president. And I think we can see Donald Trump is on the way to the convention centre right now.
That's right.
Yeah,
he's been able to do that, you know, despite, again, I think I've made it very clear I'm no fan of Donald Trump's, and I think his character is fundamentally flawed. But let's give it to him. I mean, this man has been under the most astonishing, you know, political and legal assault for the last 2 years. I mean,
we have to be absolutely clear about this. It is the most stunning political comeback if what we think is going to happen does happen. I mean, January the 6th happened after the last election. So
That's
people
right. You know, Democrats and MSNBC was so focused on, like, talking about, I mean, killing our sister channel here, so focused on calling him a fascist and Hitler, instead of actually giving some of these points.
Except it's worth remembering that, you know, those people who were in his last White House, who were the closest people to him, the inner circle, have, you know, one by one come out and said what a dangerous guy he was.
But people don't seem to be concerned by that. Look, and again,
we're also hearing that, and we're not projecting this. This is Fox News projecting this. They are projecting Donald Trump to have won Pennsylvania, that crucial swing state. So that's coming from Fox News and the Trump camp. We are not projecting that as yet, but you can see the euphoria at the Trump camp there, which is in sharp contrast to what the Harris camp has asked its supporters to do, to go home, turn out the lights, and she won't address them till the morning.
Well,
my money will be on everybody else calling that state within the next hour.
I don't know. It seems a little premature to me.
And then I mean,
it's worth repeating that Trump did do that. The blue wall in 2016 became the red wall, but that was the first. Pennsylvania. So this is where we are. Fox calling it for Donald Trump. We're saying at the moment it is too close to call. But that line across the bottom there, Trump to deliver speech shortly, tells you everything. And it tells you about the confidence in the Republican camp. And
we're probably not talking about the astonishing gains, and I use that word advisedly, astonishing gains that Donald Trump is making with Latino voters in particular. He's making real inroads with black voters as well, but Latino voters. And just to tell
nothing from Kamala Harris. She, we're told, is, well, she's gone to bed. So she's certainly not speaking. So,
are you hearing anything, Hilary, from?
She's back at the VP's mansion, and I think they're struggling with these Pennsylvania results.
Yeah.
But just on the...
Having said that, I can't really fault Kamala Harris for being a bad candidate. I think that the circumstances were bad, the message wasn't great, the campaign was not fantastic, but it's not...
I think, you know, look at Ukraine, for example. I should think Volodymyr Zelensky right now is a nervous man.
Yeah, and we've been getting messages all night from Ukrainians saying, pray for us.
Yeah.
Again, we talk...
To be clear, no one has claimed anything, no one has conceded anything, but it does look as if Donald Trump is going to win this thing. And it's early days in the sense that we haven't had declarations from the three blue wall states. But
the direction of travel looks as though, you know, a relatively clean sweep, maybe. The popular vote, the Senate, maybe the whole of Congress. It's beginning to look like pure Trump America.
Yeah, well, let's...
Only Fox has called Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. But do you think this means he is now going to be the next president of America?
Is this going to mean it? We need four more electoral votes.
there's a lot of states left. He's got the election.
If you don't...
Well, we've been working for 8 years for this, so we're ecstatic. All of our hard work is paying off.
And he will be speaking. No word thus far from Kamala Harris.
Well, not just no word, but they've packed up and gone home for the night. Well, we saw those images of lights going out.
Well, the party's
people...
over, but has she gone to bed
Well,
and stuff?
I think Hilary said that she's gone back
to the mansion.
To the mansion. But we've had
the Fox News were just calling Pennsylvania. I'm told that they are now calling the presidency for Donald Trump. We are not doing that. We are waiting on some more data, but
so I imagine we'll be seeing Donald Trump appear there very shortly. Twice impeached, a convicted felon, a president who didn't believe in the legitimacy of the transfer of power, didn't turn up to the inauguration of Joe Biden 4 years ago. I'm reminded that the headline of the New York Times in 2021 was "The terrible experiment is over." The headline went on to say, "President Donald J. Trump, the end." But when Trump left and didn't turn up to that inauguration, he told his supporters, "We love you," and he said, "We will be back in some form." So he was right, it seems.
Yeah, Jerry. I think this is a shocking defeat for the Democratic Party, and I think there'll be a lot of internal soul searching within the Democratic Party about how they put right whatever went wrong here. That they've lost to this man who, you know, Mark has spelt out with all his flaws and his, you know, character flaws and his legal issues and his horrible rhetoric and all this kind of stuff. They've lost a crushing election to him and his party. So
here, and why this is such a crushing blow for the Democratic Party.
To be clear, nothing has been conceded yet. Nothing has been claimed yet. Fox News or Fox TV have projected the election for Donald Trump. We are not doing that, but it has been, or it looks like it's going to be a spectacular night for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Interrupt you because Sky News is ready to make a major state projection.
Wow.
And it is this, and it is major, and it is quite possibly the state that wins this for Donald Trump. Sky News is projecting that Donald Trump has won Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we assumed would take several days to come back, but the margin of victory for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania is such that we and NBC News are able to project that he is the winner of Pennsylvania. 19 electoral college votes.
He lost in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, one trend that is becoming clear is that he is improving on his 2020 margins.
Everywhere.
And you're saying even in...
literally everywhere.
Let's have a look at the... it looks like it is...
Well, Fox News has already projected Donald Trump the winner of the US presidency, but we aren't doing that as yet. But we are
a stunning political comeback.
Yeah, absolutely. And Donald Trump, always surprising, and he has surprised again this evening.
I mean, Pennsylvania was the state where the Democrats threw everything. Time,
hundreds of millions of dollars,
money. You know, they knew that this was the key, and they've fallen short.
I don't think it's an enthusiasm for Trump. I think it's a lack of enthusiasm for Harris.
Well, I mean...
This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. Thank you. I will not let you down. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than it has ever been before. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Donald Trump claims victory in this election, he said.
That is true. She hasn't conceded yet, I suppose, so, you know, she will.
Well, he has declared victory,
But
though.
it was quite striking that he didn't, you know, there was no note of graciousness towards it.
He was a remarkable comeback, a remarkable political victory. I think stunning is the word. A stunning moment, stunning comeback. There is stunned excitement across a little more than half of America, stunned anxiety for others as well, because
she didn't have that likability that I think so many victorious candidates do need to have. It's about being the voter's retribution when he gets into power. He is a master of false promises, false claims, empty, hollow threats. And he's not a man you can often hold to his word. So we'll have to see what kind of presidency he will end up running and whether he will be true to that more magnanimous rhetoric we've heard tonight if, as seems almost certain now, he does become the president. Let's just...
Well, this is a picture that we are seeing again and again in county after county. Donald Trump flipping historically Democratic counties. In fact, there is basically nowhere, as far as we can see, on the map at the moment where Kamala Harris has overperformed. Any county in the United States that Kamala Harris has overperformed relative to where Joe Biden was in 2020 is a dismal performance overall. And just as he's highly likely to win the popular vote as well. He's won the Senate, as we know, and the House is entirely possible that it goes his way. He is going to be in Washington, D.C., in the city that we're in right now, Yalda Mark. He is going to be king of all he surveys, completely dominant politically, at least for the next 2 years until the next midterm elections.
Yeah, well, Lewis pointed that very interesting statistic that, and I've seen this elsewhere too, that so far we haven't found a single, there are thousands of counties in the United States, not a single county where Kamala Harris, as Lewis said, did outperformed Joe Biden's vote in 2020, which is an astonishing, that's a statistical freak. I mean,
yeah, it's a clean sweep, pretty much, and we will.
The sense for them is that life was better under Donald Trump, and for Hillary Clinton, I mean, she was VP to a deeply unpopular president.
Yeah, Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, yes.
Yeah. How is it that these campaigns, because the Harris people are literally shocked at the numbers that are turning out now, how is it that hundreds of millions of dollars were spent on data analysis and data collection and forget about all the money that was spent on advertising and get out the vote and that, but just the data operations on these campaigns alone were huge. And the amount of money spent on polling were huge. And
James Matthews, who is at Mar-a-Lago, and the lights there are going off, actually. We heard about Kamala Harris and her lights going up. But
when Donald Trump eventually did take to the stage, same old notes, same old gags, same old anecdotes. And, for a speech at 3 in the morning, it perhaps went on too long for many. They started actually drifting away before he finished. But that does not diminish, of course, the significance and the historical nature of it all. God spared my life for a reason, he said. That reason being to save our country and return America to greatness. He spoke of he has a job on his hands, Yalda, because clearly half of this country is trembling at the prospect of a Trump presidency. Remember the dark warnings that we have been given about this man who half the country said would embrace things like Project 2025, enhance the power of the executive, his power, and NATO worldwide concerns clearly will ensue from all of this. Fears of authoritarianism from a man described as a fascist by those who worked most closely with him. How far will he go down the road towards authoritarianism, if indeed he does at all, and what will be in place to keep him in check?
Just take a look at this. Basically, every arrow that you are seeing on this map is painted red and is lurching to the right to the Republican Party. Basically, it shows a swing in county by county across the United States, most of the West. Just look at the sheer amount, the volume of ruby Republican red that there is going to the right. You see it across the country, state by state, and if we were to break this down, demographic by demographic as well, you are just seeing a universal swing virtually across the entire United States to the Republican Party. It is very much the Republican Party's year. And
it's worth saying CNN has not yet called the election either.
We know what the outcome is. The outcome is what it is. There are no paths for Kamala Harris, but if we have our methodology and the way that the data is processed, there is really no point in jumping the gun until all those counts are in.
Tonight, in Trump getting played, and I think to some extent he has been played by some foreign leaders, and, you know, that's a risk that can happen again.
I gather we have to say goodbye to you, is that right? Are you? Oh.
I guess so.
Oh, well, no, if you want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay. But I was just being told in my ear that you... No.
You have to go. Oh. Is that... No, I mean... No.
Well, you're more than welcome to stay.
I mean, we'd love for you to stay, Hilary.
Is this an on-air conversation?
Yes, it is, I'm afraid.
We were told to say goodbye to you. Apparently you have to go.
Okay.
No, you stay.
We'd love for you to stay. Okay, well, Hilary, stay.
Seriously, stay right here.
I mean, we have about an hour and a half of this programme left.
I'm really glad I said that. I don't know what I'm hearing in my ear.
I tried to look over, actually, at Hilary a couple of times to check if she really did need to go. But stay with us.
I was going to say something about tariffs, actually, which is that...
Donald Trump has declared victory in the US election, but we have yet, because of data issues, and we're still...
And I think one of the things that we're going to see is somebody who understands the power of the presidency now in a way that he didn't before. And that's, you know, both chaotic and potentially dangerous, but... You know, that, as he said tonight, he's going to keep his promises.
And if you are just joining us, you've missed, well, quite a night. Donald Trump has claimed victory in the presidential election after big wins in the battleground states.
Now, it's not officially over. Votes are still being counted in a number of battleground states, and Sky News is yet to call the result, though the chances of a win for Kamala Harris seem increasingly remote. But as we've been saying, it's not over yet, not officially anyway. He's still 4 votes short in the Electoral College, according to our projections. However, it seems a long way back for Kamala Harris. And you were just listening there to Donald J. Trump declaring victory about an hour or so ago, standing on stage with his family and all of his supporters who had been waiting for him for some time after the Fox News network had projected that he would become the president of the United States. Now, of course, we haven't as yet declared Donald Trump the president of the United States. And we're going to get Louis to explain why we haven't done that yet. Louis, of Broadcast.
You know, Donald Trump had approval ratings of the low 30s just after January the 6th. And since then, there's been all sorts of criminal trials. I mean, he's a convicted felon. All sorts of stuff has gone on. But Donald Trump has persisted. And he has gone on the campaign trail with unbelievable energy for a 78-year-old man. And he has pulled off what, you know, in any sense, is an extraordinary political victory.
He's a stunning moment, an absolutely stunning political comeback that will create stunned excitement and stunned anxiety in almost equal measure across this country. I mean, as Louis was saying, a clean sweep, a pure Trump America appears to be what this country will wake up to in the hours ahead.
Yeah, I guess also the fact that they wrapped up, packed up and left quite early in the night and said they'd deal with this outcome in the morning. Yeah. Does that make you feel like they're slightly out of touch again with America, the American people and what they wanted?
Well, I think that was just a campaign team that was humiliated and didn't know what else to do, honestly. I think...
The problem is that Joe Biden is going to now say, I'm the only candidate that can beat Donald Trump.
Oh, the gloating from Joe Biden, I'm sure, will be enormous over the next few days.
And actually...
Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States of America. And so the man who has upended all the rules of politics in America is president for a second time. The man who has been impeached twice, who has a criminal conviction, who stands accused of trying to overthrow the results of the last election, has won this one. It is a quite extraordinary moment. Whatever you think of him, love him or hate him, it is a stunning political comeback. Donald J. Trump, property developer, reality TV star turned politician, is back in the White House. This is an historic moment for America, but also for the world.